Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to My Deep Guide, and in today's video I'm going to be addressing something that is like a big occurring type of a question and something that I have been mulling around and battling with, and that is like a decision and how to make a decision between two important and equally kind of tempting or useful devices. And in this case, the first one is Supernote A5X2 or Supernote Manta. So that one came out in late December of 2024. It was a long-awaited device and it delivered big time. However, for a really high price. But even so, it is something that's very worth considering, and a lot of users are kind of tempted and are considering this device for good reasons. Then a couple of weeks later, Boox came out with the Note Max, the big monster, at a very close price as the A5X2 or Manta, but it's a 13.3-inch screen, 300 ppi, and it does offer quite a lot. And understandably so, a lot of users are kind of going like, this or that, this or that, this or that. How do I choose? What do I do? And I actually was one of them who was kind of teetering between these two. Which one do I get? Which one do I get? And the main problem here is that I want to establish at the get-go, both of these devices are excellent at their very own rights. And there's like an overlap of what they do, what they can do like at the same time, but there's also specific things that are very different between these two. Put into mix the fact that they are a considerable investment, and then, you know, the decision becomes quite an important one and a difficult one. So this video is not going to be just like a full-on detailed versus Note Max versus Manta. No, what I want to do in this video is share with you guys my process of making a decision between these two devices and how I approach this dilemma that some of you are also in, and hopefully that maybe helps in trying to figure out what is the right device for you, if any of these two is actually the right device for your needs. So hopefully that's something that you guys find helpful and or useful. But before we begin, there's two things that I would like to mention. First, if you like the work that I do on My Deep Guide, please like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and also ding the notification bell down below to get notified when new videos come out on My Deep Guide. And point number two, you can go to mydeepguide.com/shop, where you can find MDO and MMP, which are both hyperlinked PDF workbooks. In the case of MDO, My Daily Organizer, it helps you organize all of your yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, personal or professional needs. And MMP, My Deep Guide Meeting Planner, is a hyperlinked workbook that is there to help you centralize, simplify, and organize all of your meeting planning needs. And both of these work absolutely brilliantly on both of these, and they are like a perfect companion to increase the productivity on either of these devices. More information you can find in the description below for both of these products to check out and see if either or both of them are a good choice for you. Right now you have both MDO 2025 and for 2026 available, so that you can go ahead and plan your heart out. Purchasing any of these products, not only do you get something to genuinely improve your organizational skills and carve out more time and more mental space for you in your daily life, but you also directly support the independence of My Deep Guide. And now, onwards with Note Max or Manta. The category that carries the most weight for my own personal case scenario is the writing category. In the writing category, I have the three priorities listed in the order of importance for me as feel, performance, and functionality. So when we're talking about the writing feel, the writing feel on the Note Max is extremely comfortable. This resembles the writing feel of the Note Air 3C and the Note Air 4C, which are the tablets that were probably some of the most comfortable tablets to write on, except that this is even better because it has that same give, it has that same texture, it has that same type of overall writing feel, but because it's larger, there's a bit more flex and a little bit more give when writing. And that is a really, really important point for me, because one of the things that definitely kind of takes me away from a writing experience is any kind of type of hardness that is resisting when I'm pressing on the screen and writing. The best example for me that would be the Remarkable Paper Pro, which when you're in contact with the screen and writing, it has absolutely gorgeous writing feel, undeniably fantastic writing feel. But the initial contact is always very hard, and in addition to that, the overall feel when you're pressing is one of hardness. And that is something that was true also with Tab Ultra C, for example. That's one of the things that I really didn't like, because it was very glassy. And that is also true with Go 10.3. That is one of the gripes that I do have with Go 10.3, is that the surface that you're writing on is harder than it is on the Note Air 3C, and therefore the writing feel is not as good. I was kind of fearful that the Note Max is going to follow the Go 10.3 footsteps, especially because it has the same design and everything like that, but thankfully that's not the case. So the writing feel on the Note Max is something that I would characterize as a plus for my use case scenario. Now, when we're talking about the Supernote Manta or the A5X2, the writing feel here is also excellent, but slightly different. So, what is different here? My concern when I first received Supernote Manta was that it's going to give me that same type of hardness that I've experienced on the Supernote Nomad or the A6X2, because Nomad is a smaller device, so A6 format with a glass panel. However, this is an A5 format, so larger, and actually even a bit larger because it's 10.7 inch or something like that. And most importantly, it's using a Carta flexible screen, which has that give. So in that respect, it is excellent. However, on top, we do have this Feel Right 2 surface that is self-healing, and it's designed to kind of work in conjunction with their ceramic nib that never spends, right? So that in itself is a wholly unique situation and a wholly unique writing feel when compared to any other device. So Supernotes have a very, very unique writing feel, and that's something that you either like or you don't. I personally do like the writing feel of the Manta. I actually like it way more than the writing feel of the Nomad. When compared to the Supernote A5X, the original, well, that one had the Feel Right 1. And that one is much smoother and kind of more similar to a gel type of pen writing. And I think that what happened here, for me at least, you have this kind of rubbery surface with the give, which is Feel Right 2, but it's also kind of uneven on the surface of it to give you that papery type of feel. And then you have a very, very smooth kind of pen tip going over all of that. The feel for me is that I get the vibrations of the structure that this is gliding over, but the key word here is gliding. And even though Supernote Manta does not have the hardness that the Supernote Nomad has, so it's definitely much, much better writing feel than on the Nomad, it has slipperiness that is very, very kind of specific for this combination of Feel Right 2 and this nib. And if I'm correct, then yes, writing with another nib will be different. And I definitely don't get that slidiness feel as when I'm using the ceramic nib. But because it's a Feel-Right 2 that's designed to work with this one, it doesn't really play well with these types of softer nibs, because when you have a soft nib on a soft type of screen, you get this kind of stickiness that's really not pleasant. So if I were to use Nomad, I'm going to use it with the ceramic nib the way it was designed to be used, and that I think is an excellent writing feel, but I would characterize it as an A. So for my personal use case scenario, I think it's excellent. It's just a simple fact that I prefer the overall combination of the writing feel on the Note Max. As far as writing performance goes, there's really nothing between the two, because the writing latency on both of them is absolutely excellent and they are neck and neck. However, there is one thing that is an important difference between the two, and that is the image quality performance of the written strokes. And there, the interpolation and the filtering is simply way better on the Boox platform, and Note Max included, than it is on the Supernote Manta. Granted, yes, you do have anti-aliasing option to turn on the Manta for the writing, and that does improve things quite a bit when compared to previously, but it's still not really on the level of smoothness, crispness, and just lovely way that the strokes are displayed on the Note Max. So I would give the advantage for me personally to Note Max in that category as well. As far as the notebook or writing functionality goes, traditionally this is where the Supernote Manta should just take the cake and we be done with that segment. However, Note Max is sporting the OS 4 from Boox, which has gotten some updates and has gotten to a much better state where it wasn't previously. So there's actually genuine competition between these two in the notebook functionalities as well. However, I think that the advantage still needs to go to the Manta, simply because of the straightforward user experience and user interface. Because, for example, I can just write something here, right? Something here, and then if I want to make a link, I'll just... Then in theory, I should be able to just press these two here and circle around. However, here we're running into a problem where the gesture detection is really not that great on yeah, it's not that great with the two-finger gesture. And here's a bigger platform problem, is that this pen doesn't have a button which I could easily program to function as a lasso selection tool. So here I can use this as a lasso selection tool, but here right now I have it as a region erase, and that's what I would like to use. And I would like to, there we go, now it finally worked. But that's a rare occurrence, so in theory that functionality would have been perfect if it was 100%, but it's nowhere near 100% with the two fingers on the screen. So therefore, for me, the ideal solution would have been if this pen had a button, or any of their ceramic pens actually had a button that you could program to function as a marquee or the alternate function, right? So you have two fingers on this one, which is 100%, just works all the time correctly, and the other one is the alternative here. But we don't have that. And that marquee selection is extremely important, because that is your gateway to all of the additional advanced functionalities that are so valuable on the Supernote platform. Once you have that marquee selection working, the idea is that you can simply just click here to insert a link, and then you choose what do you want it to look like. So that's how I want it to look like, and I want to link it to another page in a current file, in recent files, other files, or a web page, right? So I can just link to, I don't know, page 11 here, be okay with it, and that's it. And what I like about it is that the user interface is not obstructive, right? So what's added here doesn't really interfere way too much. Yes, it does go a little bit into the lower line, but it is kind of okay. The same thing goes with the headings. So let's try and see if this works. Now it works. Yay, cool. So that's how it should work, but it's not really always the case. With the headings, this is an even more powerful functionality, which actually allows you to insert headings like this. And then when you go to the table of contents of your notebook, then you have basically chapters, which allow you to easily navigate between these two. So for me, that functionality of having the headings and links is something that's really, really important, because you can easily link between multiple notebooks and documents and use headings and basically always know where you're at. So for the longest time, that was the selling point of the functionalities on the Supernote platform. However, the latest update OS 4 has put Boox straight into the running, and in some cases it's actually a little bit better. Here's what I mean. So for example, this is my text, right? And you'll notice that I've customized my toolbar here, and there's no selection tool there. I actually purposefully eliminated the tool. Now I do have a button here, but it's not possible to program that functionality on the Boox either. So there's a negative point there as well. However, Boox does have that AI kind of functionality thing where I can simply do this and it will understand, hey, you just selected it, because that's a functionality that I enabled, that I can just circle something and it turns it into a lasso selection tool. That is even more streamlined than what we've had or what we currently have on the Supernote, because I have one less thing between me and the action that I'm performing. On the Supernote, it is a gesture, and even if it is 100% reliable gesture or a button, it's still an action that you have to perform and do the circling, right? So it's action and circling. Here, you do not have an action. You only have circling and the device does the rest. And that makes the user experience of simply selecting things on Boox actually improved and better streamlined than it is currently on the Supernote platform. And once it's selected, then you have this enormous plethora of tools and possibilities that you can use on the Boox platform, and that's where the functionalities are just simply overwhelmingly, and that could be a negative point, but for me it's not a negative point, but you have to keep in mind that there's a lot here and it could be overwhelming. But that selection, now I can do several things, and I can add a link, and then I can link to notes. I can link to notes, link to file, or link to a website. So seemingly this is exactly the same thing that we have here, right? So if I just go and write something, and let's see if this is going to work. There we go, it works. And I go to link, you get the same thing. We got the how it's going to look, that's going to be later on. And it's like recent files, other files, and a web page. Okay, fine. So let's say that I want to link to a note. So I can just go link to a page in recent notes here, and let's say page 2 here. And then when I'm done, it's asking me, hey, how do you want it to look like? And it also has the additional option of adding a remark if that's something that you want, right? So that's how the link is going to look like. Or icon and a title. There we go. So we're going to go like this. And that is the problem that I have with the Boox linking feature, because while yes, this line here and the icon, it does take a little bit, this takes like the whole underline there. And technically speaking, what other users said was that you can long press and kind of move it, but that's not the case for me. I cannot get that to happen no matter what I do. And if I use the lasso tool, which is the selection tool, and then kind of long press, it doesn't really work that way either. And the additional problem that I have is I don't know how to delete this link from this portion of the text, because I can just delete the whole thing, but that's not what I want. I want to remove the link. So the only way that I got it to work is to delete the whole thing and then undo, and then I will get the text back. But what if I accidentally deleted the whole thing and I want to get back the text and the link? And then it's just kind of like, oh yeah, the traditional Boox issues are there. Well, that's simply not the case here. And furthermore, they've recently made it even easier, where you simply long press with your stylus and then you automatically go to that option. And it works the same way for the link as well, where you simply long press. Okay, so I can just get it to be a link. So let's now reestablish the link here. There we go. So we have it as a normal link. And then I can just long press and I get the option and remove it. That's how it should work, like for every device, but it doesn't. The selecting itself, better on Note Max, but what you do with that selection afterwards is still clumsy. You still trip over it. It functions, but it is a compromise. That is not the case on the Manta. It is simply a superior workflow. Another thing that's also important to kind of cover with the OS 4 is that they've added the functionality of outlines, which is again hidden, but if you long press with your finger, you will have anywhere on the page, you will have the option add to outline. And once you add the outline, that's basically the same type of functionality that we have with the headings here. So basically, if I go to full screen and I go to page overview here or notebooks, I will have the outline option, and this is where my table of contents will be. We do have an advantage here on the Note Max, which is you can add sub outlines, so sub chapters, which is not something that you can use on the Manta. The workflow is streamlined and for me better on the Note Max Boox platform. The only thing that I'm obviously missing here is the indication on the page that this page has become an outline. That is something that you have with the headings, not something that you have with the outlines. However, then you go back again, the advantage of outlines on the Boox platform is when you export your notebook as a PDF that has outlines, those export as bookmarks and as a table of content that you can navigate through outside of the Boox device, so on your PC or something, which is not the case on a Supernote. So we have this kind of seesaw kind of thing between the two. Hopefully already by now, you guys kind of see like why it is such a complicated thing to decide between these two, because they are very, very powerful, very similar, but also quite different when you start to dig into the differences here. Additional aspects that you also have to kind of keep in mind functionality wise for writing is that the Boox platform has the ability to add voice recordings, images, text box, and a plethora of other kind of functionalities here with fill tools and all sorts of things, shapes and all that kind of stuff in your notebook if that is something that you're looking for. Supernote, on the other end, it has a limited set of tools that is focused solely for writing, but what it has there is really, really well implemented and it works in a really good way. So overall, functionality wise, I think that Boox is more dominant because simply it's a powerhouse and it has more functionalities, but the way that these are implemented and the way that you can use them is more complicated and is not really streamlined or there yet. There's, as I've shown, so many steps that are basically frustrating on a day-to-day basis, whereas on Manta, while you still do have frustrating steps, there are far fewer of them and it's much easier to work with. But then again, I can't really ignore the fact that I can add voice recordings to my MDO or MMP meeting planner, which can also be used as a notebook template kind of approach on the Boox, on both of them. And then that becomes a really, really powerful tool. And also I frequently use notebooks where I insert images or shapes and things like that to reference to these things. And it comes down to the real world use case scenario. So for me personally, I think that the workflow and the implementation of functionalities is better on the Supernote Manta, but for my use case scenarios and the things that I need a device for, Note Max offers additional functions that Supernote simply doesn't have and that I do actually utilize in my day-to-day workflow. So that's why, functionality-wise, even though I wish that it was as streamlined as the Supernote, I do lean for the Note Max because of the power of the functionalities that it simply has. The next category for me is reading in general, and here I have 3 categories, and the order of priority here is image quality, functionalities, and and performance. And if we start with the image quality, I think that both of them offer excellent image quality because they are at 300 ppi. However, I do have more functionalities here, and then I go to the menu. You have the style options, including the image display and text display options, navigation display, and also, in addition, split view, which is incredibly functional and usable for a format like this. On the Supernote, you do have some functionalities. Again, it's kind of focused in a very different way. The crop functionality, really bad, so it doesn't really work as I would want it to. But then again, it does have the auto flip orientation thing where when you flip it around, it will automatically kind of fit the width, and that basically works really nice. And I especially love the addition of giving you this little helper where you are when reading. So these are the things that I genuinely appreciate when going through the documents on a Supernote platform, especially on the Supernote A5X2 or the Manta, because with its larger display and 300 ppi, it's just really nice to use. The negative thing here is the lack of options or image adjustment options. There are none. The only one that you have is the contrast, and by default the contrast is set to really high. If the lowest setting of contrast, which is this, is not something that is working well with the document that you're working on, then you're kind of stuck. You don't really have these options. While on the books, it's a very different situation. First of all, when you turn everything off, you can see just how big of a difference contrast-wise is, and how big of a just a wider range, dynamic range, this platform has when compared to the Supernote. And if you're working with a lot of different PDF documents, that dynamic range and flexibility is very important. So that really matters a lot to me when combined with the image quality. So I know that I'm now kind of crisscrossing two things, the functionalities and image quality, but I think that I can't really unlink them because they do tie in directly into the perceived image quality that I can have on a device when I end up using it. So for these reasons, I do prefer the use of Note Max as a reader as far as the image quality and image quality related functionalities. And then we have the overall functionalities, and as I've already kind of shown, formatting wise and flexibility wise, there's very little comparison between Neo Reader and the default reader on the Supernote. Supernote is very Spartan, very limited, and it's again focused on writing down your annotations and doing all of these things inside of your document. Basically treating it like paper document that you can write on top of it, and you can have a little bit of kind of added things like adding a link, a bookmark, and that's pretty much it. You can add links, you can add bookmarks, and that's that. On the notebooks, it is a very different story where it's kind of like a powerhouse, but also it can be a little bit confusing, and there is that negative aspect. So if you're looking for simplicity, Supernote is definitely the way to go, but that also means that it's simple, so you can't really expect it from it too complex of a thing. However, it does have a party piece that Boox simply doesn't have, and that is a dedicated text selection highlighter tool, which works just awesome. First of all, it's super interactive, and also it's really easy to use. Again, we have that smooth, streamlined user experience that is cohesive throughout the whole platform. And an additional thing that's a big plus for the Supernote Manta is that the user interface and the user experience is very familiar between the reader and the notebook. Not really the case on the books. So that streamlined efficiency and the ability to easily select these things, and then you can add your digests or annotations to it and things like that. Here I can add my digests and blah blah blah, and I really like that on the Manta. On the Note Max, you can kind of do that kind of thing, but it's a little bit more involved. So I've set it up now that I'm using my pen as a touch, right? So when in this mode I'm in touch, if I go into the scribble mode, then it's writing. So right now it's going to function as a replacement for the touch. And that's really good because then I can just select here, and seemingly I can do the same thing, but it's much slower. Like, this is so slow. it's like nowhere near that you can compare how this functions and how this functions. I mean, there's just a really, really large difference here. The second thing is that once I've done with the selection, Supernote gives me a selection of tools immediately. Here, the way it works, press and hold, select, let go. And this makes sense if what you're looking for is simply highlighting things, right? So maybe you just want to highlight, and maybe you want to highlight a little bit more here, and you don't have the option popping up all the time because maybe that's distracting. So maybe that's an advantage when compared to that kind of use case scenario, because here you do have to go like this, and then you just have to say like, oh, I want it to be that, and then you're done. So you do have like these two steps. But here, yeah, if you want additional thing, you tap on it, and then you get additional options. And again, you see that option there. Yes, the selection is slower, but the options and the functionalities that you have with the selection are much, much, much higher. And the really, really big thing is that when you do all of this and you add an annotation, of course you can add annotations here. The important thing here is I can just type something, right, and update. And if I now go to contents, and I check out the contents, there are certain things that you don't have on the Supernote. So on the Supernote, of course, it will tell you where the annotations are, where the highlights are. So that's all good. However, there's nothing really that I can do with this other than erase them. So all of my work with processing this PDF file that I've done on this device is actually locked to this device. The annotations, all of it is locked. That's not the case on the Boox platform or on the Note Max. I can also use this option here, which is export. And then I can export my annotations and the excerpts and all of that kind of stuff as a text file and use it further. So that is an extra step that this platform does have. And again, like in the case with the PDFs, when you PDFs that you export of the notebooks, where the outline is something that goes out of the Boox platform into the other ecosystem, the same thing happens here. Your processing of the PDF file, the important stuff here that you've done, can be exported and used elsewhere outside of the Boox ecosystem, while that's really not the case with the Supernote. And for those functionalities like and other many other things, I do prefer the Boox Neo Reader, simply as functionality wise. It's much more flexible, much more powerful kind of a tool than the reader is on the Supernote Manta. However, Supernote Manta reader, much more focused, much easier to use, and all that kind of stuff. So if that's what you're going for, then that's going to be your priority. But for me and my use case scenario, my priority are these things, and then it goes to the Note Max. Finally, we have also the performance. For me, the performance is an important. And here, there's while they're fairly similar when you're just flipping pages here, even though Supernote or Note Max has a far more powerful CPU, we're still talking about a similar type of gen of a screen, and the performance is going to be the same, ghosting and all. So Supernote has issues with ghosting as well. You could see that there was ghosting there. So I think this is more of a panel type of thing. However, Note has an ace up its sleeve, Note Max, because you can then switch to speed mode, and then things are simply a lot faster on the Note Max, because then you can just really navigate in a super fast way, which is simply not possible to do on the Supernote Manta. What you do have on the Supernote Manta is this additional slider here, which you can, in theory, use to go through the document and kind of slide through, but the implementation of it is not really something that I ever gotten to grips with. It doesn't really scale, what I'm doing here doesn't scale to what I see on the screen. It's counterintuitive, and therefore I end up not using it, which is not a great thing. On the Boox, you do have that same thing, but it's slightly different because you just go to progress and then you can just slide through pages. And here you can just see that this is a lot faster and a lot more convenient to use, at least for me, when I'm quickly navigating and trying to find something. So reader performance, ghosting and all, I would give it to the Note Max, with one additional thing that needs to be mentioned. The screen on Note Max is darker than it is on the Supernote Manta, although I'm not really bothered by that because it does have this nice matching frame, which is not the case with the Manta. So I'm a little bit less distracted by that overall darkness than I am on the Supernote Manta. The final consideration that is important for me when considering these types of devices and making a decision is the typing category overall. I really like using a monochromatic e-ink screen. It's a really satisfying typing experience if it all works properly. So that is one of the things that I'm also looking from the device, the ultimate device. It should be able to kind of tackle all of these things in a satisfactory manner, and then it's gonna be like a win for me. And the three categories in typing are reliability, flexibility, and performance. And unfortunately, basically on all aspects of typing, Supernote platform is lacking, and it's lacking severely. Now, as far as connectivity goes, it's okay. So it has a Bluetooth, and I'm able to hook up my Logitech K860 keyboard that I'm using on my PC normally, right? So I can just use it as one of the inputs. It's hooked up, there we go, K860 connected, all good, right? Well, yes and no, because when you go to the keyboard settings, I am in Norway and I'm using a Nordic language layout. So if I add keyboards, I have English layout, okay, then I need to add another layout, and then you have these layouts here: simplified Chinese, traditional Chinese, Japanese, Deutsch, Deutschland and Belgium, then we have Luxembourg, Österreich, Schweiz, those are the versions of the German. Then you have French, Canadian and France. Then we have Hebrew, Arabic Egypt, Arabic Saudi Arabia. Then we have Portuguese. Then we have Brazil and Portugal. Okay, cool. We have Spanish and we have Czech. No Nordic languages here. So right at the get-go, while I physically can connect my keyboard to the Supernote, I cannot use it as I normally would because I do not have the Nordic keyboard layout on an Android system. That is beyond anything that I can kind of like comprehend, and it's been like that for such a long time that it's absolutely ridiculous. Even if it was all good, there are additional problems because it's very limited. This is not a Google Play certified device. Now, other people are going to say like, yeah, but you can sideload apps. Well, yeah, you can sideload apps if you really want to go that route. It's really not that straightforward. The performance of the device is really not that good. And also you have the limitation of you can only sideload apps that do not rely on Google Play service. And since I do rely on Google Drive or Google Docs, then that makes it pretty much useless to me. You do have a Word document here, and here I can start typing, and seemingly everything is working as it should. Correct? Well, if we take into consideration that I don't have my layout, which I just now have remembered, you will have a plethora of typos, as I have here. But alright, let's say that the layout is not a problem. The performance, fine. The reliability of it is good. The thing that's really a problem for me is the lack of basic word processor functionalities. And I'm talking about the most basic things, such as selecting text. So Control and Shift is supposed to select text like each word, or Control should move the cursor at the beginning of each word, but that's not what is happening. Then the second thing is that you have the Shift and individual things. Nope, it's not really selecting anything. You can have Shift and Up, that will do it, but then you start moving left and right, and it's actually moving the whole selection per character, not really expanding it or anything like that. And it's not just an aspect of keyboard thing. It's like you can't really do it. There's no bold, there's no italic, there's no formatting, there's no headings, there's no font size, there's nothing. So this is basically a text file. You have a text file that you're typing on, and that's it. And that is way too limited. And combined with other limitations that I've been talking about, it's just simply a no-go for me. Another thing that's also important to keep in mind is that while you can hook up wireless Bluetooth keyboards, you can also hook up wireless or wired USB-C or USB keyboards if you have the USB-C to USB-A converter, as you can see here. I can use my knock-free keyboard in this super awesome kick-ass setup, and it is working yeah, pretty much as I would expect it to. I love the flexibility that I am able and allowed to do these kinds of things, which is very nice. But again, then you have the pure software related functionalities, which are still a deal breaker. With the Note Max and typing, there are basically none of these types of issues. As you can see, I simply unplugged this wireless dongle from the Supernote and plugged it in here, and it immediately said like, hey, there's your hardware keyboard. Wanna tap and select a language and check it out. You can wake up the device with the keyboard. So for example, if it's sleeping, I can just hit space and it's going to wake up. So of course it's going to consume a little bit more power when it's using that functionality, but it's super nice to have that ability to kind of turn it into a more office type of working experience. Another advantage here is that I can add different keyboard layouts, right? So if I'm switching between my Logitech K860, which is a Nordic keyboard layout, and this one is a US keyboard layout, I can just say like, okay, so I'm using a US keyboard layout, and I can just go, I saw it, there's the Norwegian one, boom, and I'm done. That's it. I just like selected both of these, and then you can have a shortcut to switch between the different keyboard layouts on your keyboard shortcut, and that's that. So right out of the get-go, we have the same type of flexibility hardware-wise, so you can hook up the same types of keyboards to both devices, but flexibility in keyboard layouts. I can use all of the stuff that I want on the Note Max. I can't use it on the Supernote. And then you add to this whole thing the fact that this is a Google Play certified device with the Google Play Store, and the fact that I can use services that use Google Play service. And that means I can use the Google Drive and Google Docs. So I can just continue working on my documents here. I can just scroll here, and as you can see, the performance is really good. And I can just go here. Okay, let's go. We have different type of formatting, and then I can just go, this is my new chapter, Control select to kind of select everything like there. I want this to be a heading of type 3, so normal stuff. Okay, so there we go. We are done with that, and then I can go down here and I can write in my Google Doc normally, and even work on it in a collaborative mode if I chose to do so. And not only that, but actually when you're done with all of that, this being a unified platform, again, that leitmotif, it's not locked to the device itself. It's already there in your Google Drive, and then you just continue working off, or you just share it as you normally would. Note Max simply slots into a productive workflow, for me at least, for my workflow, in a better and more flexible way. And as far as typing goes, there's really very little comparison between the two. It's a clear-cut kind of picture that Note Max is a dominant winner here. To kind of wrap it up, for me, it was like 3 pros and 3 cons for each of these devices, and then kind of getting to the final decision. And for the Note Max, the pros are the screen size, so the real estate, the versatility and power of the whole platform and device, and also the price, considering what it brings to the table, what you get for how much money. For the Manta, the pros were the focus of the overall platform, so lack of distractions and streamlined user interface and all that kind of stuff, which basically goes into the second point, which is ease of use. You simply familiarize yourself with the platform, so that takes a little bit of time. Once you do, then it becomes a familiar kind of thing, and then it becomes quite easy to use. And the final thing that I really liked about the Manta is the fact that it's an all plastic build, and it's like a really durable and very light and portable device, which is definitely not the case with the Note Max. So that portability, durability and lightness of Manta, definitely a pro. Now on to three most important cons between these two. For me, on the Note Max, the cons were, as I mentioned, the size and the potential fragility, because it is metal and it is a glass panel, although it is proving to be fairly, robust. So that is a good thing, but there is a element of fear of it when you're dealing with a large device like that, and you know that it's a fragile screen, etc., etc. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. The second one is ghosting, but they are starting to improve that with the update, so hopefully that's something that's going to improve even further. But even so, as soon as you switch to speed mode here in the refresh or the A2 mode, the BSR functionality is then enabled, and then the ghosting is a much better performing. And my final kind of concern or con with Note Max is the overall Boox software reliability. Just because the current state of the OS 4 is going in a promising direction and has improved certain things, that's not a guarantee at all that by the version 4.1 or 4.2 they're not going to kind of screw it all up and just ruin it, because it wouldn't be the first time that they would actually do that. We've had occurrences of something like that happening before, and that is a very real negative point or a con that I have to consider, because I'm considering to use a device of multiple number of years, and preferably one where I don't have to switch between different platforms. And that's why I'm trying to make this type of an in-depth, detailed type of a decision between the two. On the Manta, the cons are the price. It's simply way too expensive for what you get. It's an excellent device, but it costs as much as the Note Max for all intents and purposes, and that is just simply way too much. The overall performance, while it is improved over the Supernote A5X, but if I'm comparing the two, there's no comparison. I mean, this is in every single respect, except the writing latency, where they're the same. Everything else is way more dominant on the Note Max. And in certain elements, this is still a little kind of slowish and sluggish. And the last really serious con for my personal use case scenario are the typing limitations and how it is as a typing device. Obviously, it's not primarily meant for that, but I am considering it for my use case scenarios, and I'm considering it overall like that, how it fits into the whole thing. And as an independent adjudicator, here's Quaderno A4, and it's running the My Daily Organizer 2025. And I'm just gonna go to my lists, and the list that I prepared here is in relation to what we're doing right now, and which is 3 categories and the final, kind of tally up. So we got writing, field performance functionality, reading, image quality performance functionality, typing reliability, flexibility, performance. So these are the categories and subcategories that were important for me. For writing feel, I think they were really close, but my personal preference goes to Note Max. Performance, they are pretty much exactly the same to begin with, but I would give the edge to Note Max mainly because of the image quality performance when writing. So how it's optimizing and what it's displaying is better than it is on the Supernote Manta, even when you enable anti-aliasing on the Manta. And the functionality, there was like so much seesawing between the two, and that's a really difficult one, and I'm gonna put like an equal here, mainly because I equally love and value the streamlined functionalities and things that the Supernote Manta offers, and I think that generally it would be an easy M here instead of an N or an equal, were it not for the flexibility that the OS4 actually brings with templates becoming, PDF templates like this one can be used as a notebook template, and then you open up functionality with links, with outlines, with handwriting recognition and all that kind of stuff, and audio recordings, etc., which is really difficult to ignore if what you're looking for in your device for writing functionality is that it's a powerhouse. And in my case, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes I do actually need that. Most of the times I don't. That's why the equality is there. Then we have reading, so image quality and flexibility easily goes to Note Max. While the image quality itself is fairly similar and excellent on both of them, the flexibility of adjusting the image quality and fine-tuning these things definitely goes into favor for Note Max for me. Performance absolutely goes for Note Max, and functionality, not even a comparison, it's Note Max. Then we have typing, where they are equally reliable. Note Max is far more flexible with the language layouts, and the performance is definitely better on the Note Max. That's why I like this process, or processes like these. When I just have the devices next to each other, there's a lot of stuff that can actually distract from the most important aspects that are important for you, and I genuinely found it really difficult to choose between the two. And this makes it so easy and so straightforward, because at best we have two equals and not a single M that's like a full-on win for the Manta. So that means that, without any shadow of a doubt, between the Supernote Manta and the Note Max, Note Max is the right fit for my needs. So there you have it. That's my process, and I hope that somebody finds it useful or applicable, or you can adjust it to your own needs and things like that. So that was the whole point of the video. While I still maintain both of these devices are absolutely phenomenal, and Supernote Manta is a phenomenal device, however, it is very expensive, but if it does fit and kind of meet all of your needs head on, then you get something that's exceptionally good. What I like about the process that I do, it takes out of the equation the personal attachment towards a device, because I have started to form a personal attachment to the Supernote Manta because it's a really lovable device. It's lovely to have as a companion. It's just an amazing companion device. The process itself is a little bit more rigorous and kind of cold, shall we say, and it clearly demonstrates that for my needs, if I take the personal part out of the equation, for my needs, subjective needs, this meets all of them head on. Personally, I just wish that they were both belonging to the same ecosystem, so that I could just jump between one and the other. That would be like the most ideal kind of situation, but it's not. So for me, in this dilemma, Supernote Manta or Note Max, I've shown you the process and how I reached to the conclusion. For me, it's Note Max, and that's the one that I'm going to be sticking with for now. So let's see how that works out in the long run. But also, I'm not going to be selling my Supernote Manta anytime soon, because I just love it too much. Well, that's it from me. Please do let me know in the comments down below what your methodologies are. Do you find this type of method kind of helpful in some way, or the video helpful in some way? I genuinely want to hear what are your reasonings between, if you have like a dilemma between these two, and what are your considerations and what are your pros or cons, etc. It might just help, even sharing that as a comment, it might help you like formulate something that's been in your head, to formulate it into a concrete sentence and a comment, and that might also help kind of crystallize some of the thoughts that you may have in your head. So that's also a valid approach for you to kind of try out, and also that can help out some other users who may be feeling the same way that you do. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye!